Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. I'm Rabbi Richard Perlman, along with my brother, Rabbi Eli Perlman. Are you with us, Rabbi?
I am here. I am here.
We are here for a Kever Avot service this afternoon. We are doing this virtually for the first time in my career. I'm doing it virtually. I'm probably assuming that it's your first time doing it virtually too, Eli, Rabbi Eli.
Yes, it is. However,
the meaning of this service will not make any difference, whether we're here virtually in our computers or on our computers, or when we go to a cemetery. It matters not. We do it for one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to remember those who stood before us, those who made their mark on this world before we came. And we live today, hopefully, in a way that when we think of our loved ones, we know we're making them proud. Over my career, I have officiated at a Kever Avot service every year. And when I came here to Peabody in 2016, I remember asking some of my congregants where we do our Kever Avot service. And I was told that we had not been doing that in the past. But there was an open house being done at one of the local cemeteries, our cemetery in Peabody, Maple Hill. And I asked if they would mind if I would officiate at a Kever Avot service along with the open house. And we've been doing it every year since. Of course, this year is different. We're doing it now virtually. But every time I start a Kever Avot service, whether it's here at Maple Hill or any cemetery when I was in Rhode Island, I always would begin by stopping and asking everyone to imagine in their minds that they're turning like the earth turns. And although maybe we don't have loved ones buried at this particular cemetery, they're buried in God's earth. And so no matter where we gather, I would always do the turn, symbolically remembering all of our loved ones where we are all formed from the earth and we return back to the earth that God gave us life from. So as we gather today for this Kever Avot service, my heart, my soul, my thoughts are with all people everywhere as they are buried in any cemetery. Rabbi?
Yes, my experience is a little different than yours. I had never gone or done a Kever Avot service in my life until I came to my congregation in Monroe Township, where I found out that about half the congregation were survivors from the Holocaust. That was 25 years ago. There aren't many of them left today, of course, unfortunately, but they couldn't go back to find their graves because they didn't know where they were. People were buried in mass graves and burned in the crematoria. They had no idea where their families were, their mothers, their fathers, their sisters, their brothers, their husbands, their wives. No idea whatsoever. So we started the Kever Avot service in the shul for those who couldn't go to a grave. The other problem was in my congregation, which is retired people, a lot of their relatives were buried in Long Island, and we're in New Jersey, and it's a 2.5-hour drive to get to a cemetery. So they couldn't go to the cemeteries either. It was just very difficult. So we started a Kever Avot service 25 years ago, and we've done it every year since. And it's been, it usually is pretty well attended. People appreciate it. They like it. They feel it's important to do it. But behind me, if you'll see the picture, these are the graves of Jewish people who died on Kristallnacht. It's a cemetery in Europe from people who died during Kristallnacht. And I just thought it would be something that was appropriate to show today, and that's why we're showing it. But I always tell a story before we start the Kever Avot story, the Kever Avot service. Different stories each time, but this one is the most favorite. People love this story. It's of this, it's raining out, it's pouring out, and there's thunder and there's lightning. And there's this little girl, and she's going to go with the car into the car so the parents could drive her to school. That's when people used to go to school before the COVID strike. And she would sit there, and every time that there was a lightning, she would look up and smile every time. And she would, even outside when she was walking to the car, there would be a bolt of lightning. She'd look up and smile, and then she'd stop, look up and smile and keep walking. When they got to the school, she was doing it the entire time in the car. She gets out of the car and she's right away, boom, lightning. And she looks up and she smiles. And finally, her father opens the window and he says, "Why do you keep smiling every time there's lightning?" And she answered him and said, "Because God is taking my picture and I want to do what's right." You know, God is taking our pictures every day, wherever we are, whatever we do. God knows we're coming to Rosh Hashanah. And one of the things we talked about before the Slichot service last night is that God shows mercy not just to those who are living, but those who have passed and those who have gone on to Olam Haba, to the world to come. And that's exactly why it's so important to do Kever Avot, to show God that we really do care about those who went on before us, and that we want God to show them as much mercy as God shows us, because as Micah says, to do justice and to do kindly, to do justice and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy God. In other words, don't you dare walk humbly with God before you show justice and mercy to everyone else. The people that we live with and the people who have passed on, those are the ones that we have to apologize to, and also love them so much before we have any right to go to God. And with that, I'll turn it back to my brother.
And I will tell you that you mentioned the child talking about God taking her picture. This morning, we began our religious school season here, right here in this particular Zoom room. And so we go ledor vador from generation to generation to generation to generation, children to parents, parents to grandparents. We all are a circle. I think God's taking all of our pictures today. He's looking at us and saying, this is good. And we need to make sure that our young people and people of all ages never forget and learn from our history and learn from our past. The people who came before us, they left us a world to take care of. And so with that, we ask ourselves, how do we take care of this world? We remember, we never forget, and we always, always honor our past while we look towards our future. Adonai ma'adam v'teidaehu ben enosh v'techashvehu Adam lahevel dama yamav ketzelover. Our lives are like a breath. Our days are like a fleeting shadow. Like a beautiful flower, in the morning we blossom and are rejuvenated. By evening, we are cut down and become brittle.
Ba'boker yatzitz v'chalaf, la'erev yimalel v'yovesh, limnot yameinu ken hodah. V'navi levav chachma. According to the number of our days, so may you teach us, and may we be worthy to learn. Then we shall acquire a heart of wisdom. Safeguard the great people and watch the upright, for the destiny of that person is peace, completeness, fulfillment.
Shemar tamorei yashar, ki achariyot lai shalom. Ach Elohim yifteh nafshi miyad yad sheol ki kateini selah. But God will redeem my soul from the grip of the lower world. For Adonai will take me to the heavens, Selah. My flesh, my heart yearn, O rock of my heart, and my portion is God forever. Then the dust returns to the ground, and the spirit returns to our loving God who gave it. Whoever sits in the refuge of the Most High, that person will dwell in the shadow of the Almighty. Adonai is my refuge and my fortress. I will always trust in my God. For God will deliver us from the ensnaring trap, from devastating pestilence. God will cover and protect us beneath the tent of peace. Kala sheri uvavi, מסור לבבי וחלקי אלוהים לעולם. וישוב העפר על הארץ כשהיה, והרוח תשוב אל האלוהים אשר נתנה.
With every sunrise and sunset, we remember them.
As the flames of the Chanukiah chase the chill of the blowing winter winds with warmth, we remember them.
As the buds open during the rebirth of spring, when we rejoice at Purim and sing the 4 questions at the Pesach Seder, we remember them.
As the skies turn deep blue in the warmth of summer and celebrate the gift of Torah and the first fruits of Shavuot, we remember them.
As the colorful leaves of autumn rustle when sitting in our Sukkot, as we restart the reading of Torah on Simchat Torah, we remember them.
All through the year, from Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we remember them.
When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them.
When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them.
When our children are named, and as we celebrate B'nai Mitzvah and Chuppah, we remember them.
When we have achievements that are based on theirs, we remember them.
When making our most difficult decisions, we remember them.
When we watch the flame of the Yizkor candle, we remember them.
As we chant the Kiddush at the Shabbat table, we remember them.
As we visit their graves on Kever Avot, we remember them.
As long as we live, they too shall live, for they are part of us, and we remember them.
The El Malei Rachamim, the prayer to remember our loved ones.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochen B'Meromim,
Hamatzei Menucha Nechona Tachat Kanfei HaShechina
B'malo et Kedoshim U'Tohorim Kizohar Harakiya Mazihidrim et Nishmot Kol Eileh Sheyizkarnu Ayam Livracha Shehalachu Le'olamam.
Began Eden Etahai Menuchatom Hana Bal HaRachamim
Hastirayim b'seyeter kinafecha le'olamim utzeror b'tzeror ha'chayim et nishmachotehem.
Adonai hu nachlatam v'yanuchu v'shalom v'shalom Mishvotehem ונאמר.
Amen.
Exalted, compassionate God, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure, to the souls of all our beloved who have gone on to their eternal home.
May their memory endure as an inspiration for charitable gifts and deeds and goodness in our lives. May their souls thus be bound up in the bond of life. May they ever, ever rest in peace. And let us all say,
Amen. Amen. At this time, I will chant responsibly with my brother, but of course, please, in your homes, even though your microphones are not on, you may join us in the 23rd Psalm as well. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar.
Adonai is my shepherd, I will not want.
God allows me relaxation in lush green meadows. Almei menuchot yinhaleni.
And guides me over calm waters. Nafshi yishovei yanecheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemeo.
God revives my spirit, guiding me the right way, for that is God's desire. Gam kelech b'geis lahamovet, lo irara ki ata imadi.
As I walk through the valley overshadowed by death, I fear no harm, for you are at my side. Shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni.
Your staff and your rod comfort me. Taroch lifanai shulchan neged sorerai.
You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. Dishan tava shemen roshi tosi revaya.
You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni, kol yemei chayai.
Surely goodness and kindness will be my portion all the days of my life. V'shavti b'veit Adonai leyorech yamim.
And I will dwell in the house of Adonai forever. At this time, we will now recite the Mourner's Kaddish. For those of you seated, if you can, it is appropriate, of course, to be standing when we recite the Mourner's Kaddish, which will now be led by Rabbi Eli.
Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah v'yalma divra chirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv v'yimru amen. Yahei shemei rabbah mevorach le'olam ul'olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudisha barichu le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata tush b'chata v'nechemata ta'amiron b'alma v'yimru amen. Yahei Shaloma Rabba Min Shemaya V'chayim Olenu V'al Kol Yisrael V'yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen.
And the mourner's Kaddish, as we recite it every time we remember a loved one. People come to shul to recite the mourner's Kaddish as they remember someone who passed. But truly, the mourner's Kaddish is an affirmation of our love for God. It brings us closer to God. And as we get closer to God, we get closer to those who lived and are now with God. Magnified and sanctified is the name of God throughout the world, which he hath created according to his will. May he establish his kingdom during the days of your life and during the life of all the house of Israel. And let us together say, Amen.
Amen.
May his great name be blessed forever and forever. Exalted and honored be the name of the Holy One. Blessed be he whose glory transcends, yea, is above all praises, hymns and blessings that man can render unto him. And let us together say,
Amen.
may there be abundant peace from the heavens and life for us and for all Israel. And let us say, Amen. May he who establish peace in the heavens grant peace to us and to all of Israel and to all live and who have lived on this earth. And we all together say,
Amen.
and with that, I ask you, before we turn this session off, before we end this service, I ask you all to remember why we came today, to remember our ancestors. It is appropriate for us to leave this service with the thoughts of our loved ones in our hearts and in our minds. It is appropriate for all of us, no matter where our loved ones are buried, to remember that they all are in God's earth, that earth that we were all formed from and we will all return to someday. As we end in a moment of silence. And with that, we say, Amen.
Amen.
Shana Tova, everyone.
Shana Tova.